This is A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers, Part 15. Is each one to be judged in the end? Indeed, yes. No one can escape God's final judgment. Who could flee forever from the truth? But the final judgment will not come until it is no longer associated with fear. One day each one will welcome it, and on that very day it will be given him. He will hear his sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world, setting it free as God's final judgment on him is received. This is the judgment in which salvation lies. This is the judgment that will set him free. This is the judgment in which all things are freed with him. Time pauses as eternity comes near, and silence lies across the world that everyone may hear this judgment of the Son of God. Holy are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Where is the world, and where is sorrow now? Is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? Do you believe that this is wholly true? No, not yet, not yet. But this is still your goal, why you are here. It is your function to prepare yourself to hear this judgment and to recognize that it is true. One instant of complete belief in this, and you will go beyond belief to certainty. One instant out of time can bring time's end. Judge not for you, but judge yourself, and thus delay this final judgment. What is your judgment of the world, teacher of God? Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? Or do you still attempt to take his role from him? Learn to be quiet, for his voice is heard in stillness. And his judgment comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening and wait for him. You who are sometimes sad and sometimes angry, who sometimes feel your just due is not given you, and your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt, give up these foolish thoughts. They are too small and meaningless to occupy your holy mind an instant longer. God's judgment waits for you to set you free. What can the world hold out to you, regardless of your judgments on its gifts, that you would rather have? You would be judged, and judged in fairness and in honesty. There is no deceit in God. His promises are sure. Only remember that. His promises have guaranteed his judgment, and his alone will be accepted in the end. It is your function to make that end be soon. It is your function to hold it to your heart and offer it to all the world to keep it safe. So the topic of judgment is one that I think people get confused about in modern days, and that I personally grew up in a religious or spiritual environment where the word judgment was used in a way that I don't believe is accurate, where basically that I would be judged in a negative way if I did anything that was wrong or against the rules or anything at all. And the way that judgment is interpreted can be in so many different ways. You know, when we think about judging ourselves or other people, that usually it is about us deciding what is right and wrong, what's good and bad. And in that sense, judgment coming from God, or the final judgment, means the last time that any judging needs to happen at all. Any separation of right and wrong need be done. And that happens when we fully accept the truth, when we fully accept God as the truth. Then there's no need for judgment anymore, because then we're all just simply in truth. So it says here, we will hear his sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world, setting it free as God's final judgment on him is received. And yeah, as I was saying before, that judgment, a lot of people associate with it being like, say, judging whether someone should go to heaven or hell, or judging whether someone did wrong things and has to be punished, or judging if someone has been a good person or something like that. And God sees us as innocent, completely innocent, sinless, completely. And in that sense, the only judgment that we have to let go of is really the one of ourselves, where we believed that we have sinned. And so by giving over that fear, that worry, that guilt, to then it be declared as sinless, without fault, innocent, then there's no need for judgment anymore of ourselves or our perceived judgment from God. So it says, time pauses as eternity comes near, and silence lies across the world that everyone may hear this judgment of the Son of God. Holy are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Where is the world and where is sorrow now? So, yeah, that says it, that basically without judgment anymore, then we can realize our holiness, our wholeness, that we're eternal, our true nature, and free, at peace forever. That's it. And the second paragraph has a lot of stuff that I highlighted here. It is not your function to prepare yourself to hear this judgment and to recognize that it is true. One instant of complete belief in this, and you will go beyond belief to certainty. One instant out of time can bring time's end. Judge not for you, but judge yourself, and thus delay the final judgment. What is your judgment of the world, teacher of God? Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? Or do you still attempt to take his role from him? Learn to be quiet, for his voice is heard in stillness. And so basically, to sort of mask our fear of being judged by God, being judged in a negative way, the fear of feeling guilty, the fear of being judged, the fear of condemnation, we create all of these judgments. And it says, have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? Or do you still attempt to take his role from him? So we often take the place of being the one who judges. So then we create all of these judgments for ourselves and for others, for the world, of what's good and bad and right and wrong. And by us taking that place of being the judger, we prevent ourselves from hearing God's real judgment, which is that we are free, that we are eternal, that we are sinless. So in a way, all of the judgments that we have toward ourselves and to the world are what is really holding us back from complete freedom, complete atonement. And it reminds me of a film called The Shack, which is about forgiveness. And there's one scene where I think it's Jesus, the role of Jesus, takes the person through this whole journey, and he realizes that he's put himself in the role of the judger, of judging who is good and bad. And that ultimately is what's creating stress for him. That's what's ultimately keeping him out of peace. And so by stepping out of that role of being the judger and letting God take that rightful place, then that is actually where the freedom really is. So, we can ask ourselves, where are we putting ourselves in the role of the one who is to judge, the one who is to decide what is right and wrong and good and bad? And can we, when we recognize that we're putting ourselves there, can we allow ourselves to be out of that role and to allow God to take that place? In this line, learn to be quiet, for his voice is heard in stillness. Nothing more to say there. You will be judged, and judged in fairness and in honesty. His promises have guaranteed his judgment, and his alone will be accepted in the end. So, when people refer to Judgment Day, the final judgment, I think a lot of people have associations of fear and worry, worried about how good of a person you've been, worried about if you've done the right things, but ultimately realizing that the final judgment is where we can claim our freedom, where we can claim who we really are. Sinless, guilt-free, peaceful, and one with God in love. So that's it for this section. Thank you for joining.